you make your way, Ron Akers? Scooch in this way for, so the clerk mentioned something, and we, at our last meeting with Fishbeck, we discussed the fact that we would want a rendering and we would pay for it. I want a rendering of the bridge, because I just thought of something. Last time we didn't get a rendering, they didn't build it the exact way we thought they would, and they said, oh, it was clearly in this thing. I wanna make sure all the vegetation is no longer, ever gonna be an issue ever again, and the rendering should be able to show that.
Okay, I'll ask
All
him
right,
to do it.
and the clerk would like to see a rendering, okay?
I'll ask him to do it.
Thank you.
I would like to see your rendering.
Somebody, a couple people in the hallway asked me, I know what it's gonna look like.
Yeah.
Well,
That's Bellevue.
right. I started telling them, go ask Belleville.
What's that?
I started telling them, go ask Belleville.
Yeah.
They run it.
Really?
I know that ain't good.
We'll start in 2 minutes. Haven't seen you in a while. I know you're here every day. I see you over there at your desk, but
Yeah. Yeah, I was waiting for you to come over today, and that's why I sent you the message. Well, I saw the thing on TV. You saw you and your wife.
yeah, I saw that.
They were trying to cook us out of here.
Ah,
We're gonna replace
Fairly decent job of it.
yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah, I
Oh,
did
nice.
Except that guy that said he'd been here 30 years.
And Haley, you got our letter for a raise?
I don't know what she's doing.
Thank you. Okay.
No water.
I need it back in a week. Okay. Getting ready to start here.
I got a clock that work.
Yeah, I know. Okay. This meeting is called to order at 6 o'clock. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you very much. We are being broadcast live over Channel 12, and we are on live on YouTube, where I believe my wife is watching. So hi. Clerk Wright, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Trustee Kelly? Here. Trustee Boyden? Here. Trustee Martin?
Here.
Trustee Frazier? Here. The clerk is present. Treasurer Bud?
Here.
Supervisor?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Clerk. Begin with this executive summary. Today, we have a consent agenda which consists of board meeting minutes, prepaid lists, voucher lists. That's basically us paying for our electric bills and all the basic things. We have a budget amendment to increase the salaries of the Director of Recreation to $75,000 and the Recreation Programmer to $68,800. That was discussed in the board meetings last year as we anticipate opening up the recreation facility within the next few months. We also have approval of the reappointments of Dolores Hogan, Helen Wiley, Mary Kogel, Patricia Sobecki, Patricia Thomas, and these are all being reappointed to the Senior Endowment Committee. Thank you very much for your service on that committee. We have approval of the stormwater maintenance agreement and with a board resolution with DTE Electric at 4200 Ecorse Road. We also have approval of the renewal of the Daniel Consulting Agreement for up to 2 years. It's on a 30-day cancellation if we wish. We have approval of the 23 Blight Control and Demolition Management Program, which is an activities report. And we have approval of a Senior Endowment Committee bylaw redo. There also will be a presentation today on the DDA and the projects and the funding of these projects. We're going to have an update, I believe, on the Denton Road Bridge. We're also having new business, which include discussion of the special land use request to change an existing daycare family home to a daycare group care home from 6 to 12 people in Country Walk subdivision. We'll have a discussion on the selection of Fishbeck to provide a wastewater master plan study of Van Buren Township's sanitary system. This is going to cost $198,000. We're having a discussion to addendum number 2 for the agreement for the Fishbeck for design engineering for Denton Roads Bridge in the amount of $42,000. And discussion on selection of on-grade contracting to provide a 16-inch water main repair and valve installation on Edison Road, that's the Edison Road Bridge, I believe, in the amount of $46,300. Moving on, we're going on to adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Ms. Treasurer Bud?
Support.
Trustee Frazier. I have a motion by Bud, supported by Trustee Frazier. Hearing no discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next item is the adoption of the consent agenda. Trustee Don Boynton. Could you please read that, make that a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of the following. Board meeting minutes.
Is that on?
There we go. I'll say again, I move that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of the following. Board meeting minutes of January 16th, the prepaid lists of January 18th, January 25th, February 1st, and the voucher list of February 6th, all of 2024. Approve of the budget amendment to increase 101-622-703-001, Director of Recreation to $75,000, and to increase 101-622-703-003, Recreation Programmer to $68,841 from general fund balance. Approval of the reappointments of Dolores Hogan, Helen Wiley, Mary Corgle, Patricia Sobecki, and Patricia Tumas to the Senior Endowment Committee with terms to expire February 6th of 2026. Approval of the Stormwater Maintenance Agreement and Board Resolution 2024-01 with DTE Electric at 42061 Ecorse Road. Approval of the renewal of the Daniel Consulting Agreement for 2 years. Approval of the 2023 Blight Control and Demolition Management Program Activities Report. And approval of the Senior Endowment Committee bylaws.
Thank you. Can I get a second? Support. Support. I heard two, but I heard Bud's loudly in my ear. So, all right, I have a motion by Trustee Boynton, and I have support by Treasurer Bud. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. We move now to public hearing, which we have none. We now are in correspondence, announcements, and presentations. Is there anybody from the board that wishes to make a correspondence, announcement, or presentation? Nope. Director Mary. Sorry, Coburn. Sorry.
No worries. Good evening, board.
Evening.
Okay, this is a presentation that Wade Trim, who is our engineering firm that the DDA utilizes, put together in regards to an overview of our projects and our funding pursuit. So our funding update. So the DDA has been working with Funding Scout, which is an entity within Wade Trim, who does our grant writing and seeks out our grant initiatives. So we've been working with them since May of 2022. So a little statistics, $14 in grants equals about $1 in fee that they charge. They've developed successful, and we have a couple pending grant applications. So our successful are $384,000 for the Safe Streets and Roads. That's the SS4A, Safe Streets for All. $40,000 from SEMCOG Transportation Planning Grant. They've assisted us to obtain an earmark from the U.S. House Committee in the amount of $500,000, and that is for the Belleville Road widening project. And they are currently assisting us with the RAISE grant for an amount of $7.5 million for the Belleville Tyler Road project, as well as technical assistance through MDOT SEMCOG TAMP grant for the Tyler Road pathway in about $600,000.
I want to add just one thing because especially because she's so wonderful. Congresswoman Dingle put in the federal earmark for $500,000, and she's attends a lot of our events, and she always sends Ms. Brown here to represent her, and she's here. And so I want to make sure that Congresswoman Dingle knows that we know where that money came from.
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
So some of the connections, just to kind of tie it all together, a lot of the funding opportunities that we are seeking go with the Belleville Road widening project. So you can see here that is kind of the center initiative, and then other projects that we are working on are kind of the bubbles around the outside. The Safe Streets for All Road action plan that we acquired the $384,000, the SEMCOG planning study, that's a Belleville Road corridor plan that we received a grant from SEMCOG for $40,000. And then again, the Michigan Infrastructure Office for $500,000, that is a pending for technical assistance for the writing of those grants, as well as the RAISE grant for $7.5 million, and then the TAP grant for the Tyler Road project in the amount of $600,000. So just kind of tie it all together, Belleville Road project is something the DDA began acquiring those right-of-ways back in 2015. We have over 80% of those right-of-ways acquired. We are now currently working to obtain 11 more. We did hire a consultant to assist us with that. They've provided, obtained appraisals on those properties and made offers to those property owners. We had at the time 13 that were needed, 11 are still outstanding, and we have tried every initiative to be able to get conversation back with them. So the consultant has reached a point where they can no longer move forward. They've made the offers, that the ball is now in those property owners' court to be able to come back to us with a counter offer if they feel the compensation is not appropriate for what they believe it to be. So with that, the DDA recently contracted with WWRP, which is an attorney, Jerry Pesic, to help us acquire those additional 11 properties. And with that, that is part of the condemnation process. So just to stress with that process, each of these property owners will still be made another appraisal offer. Because those appraisals are over 90 days old, we will obtain a current appraisal, and then that appraisal will be then presented to them. So it's not just a matter of going right to court. There is still an opportunity to settle outside of that with the updated appraisals and then the negotiation. However, there is a point where the clock is ticking and we can't wait too much longer because of the construction season for the Belleville Road widening. We do have $2.1 million secured through the TEDFC funds, as well as the earmark from Congresswoman Debbie Dingle's office in the amount of $500,000. With the efforts that we're doing with the RAISE grant for the $7.5 million, we need to make sure that we act quickly and make sure we have all the necessary easements in place in order to move efficiently for the construction season of 2025. So I talked a little bit about the in progress for Belleville Road. So we are about 30% complete with the design plan. And with that, we will start public engagement with those property owners to make sure they have a very good understanding of the project, and just to kind of make sure that everyone is aware of what the need is. So everyone is familiar with how the intersection at Belleville and Tyler is skewed, so we need to realign that as part of it. So safety. We need to make sure that we fix the bottleneck. We go from a 5-lane to a 2-lane to a 4-lane. We have our only fire station on the north end of our community to address those public safety concerns and runs in the north end of our community. Last year alone, they ran 2,099. With the two developments of the Hampton Manor, as well as the Clover communities, we're looking at an additional about 280 to 300 runs. So to get those numbers, they typically look at the number of beds, so 1 run per bed is kind of what they look on an average to add. So those are some of the issues that we are working to address. So with this project, we will have a center turn lane, a dedicated center turn lane, as well as pedestrian pathway sidewalks on there as well to address the additional safety concerns for those walking on the side of the road. So when asked, why are we doing this? There's multiple reasons, but it all does come down to safety. So another thing that we have done a preliminary design on is the Tyler Road. That is a 1.5 non-motorized pedestrian pathway. We are still determining what is the best side of the road to place that. But again, that comes to the connectivity to make sure that we are addressing that for safety. We get those walking on the shoulder onto a safe pedestrian pathway, as well as it allows connectivity for all areas of the community to be able to reach, hopefully, the community center that'll be opening soon. So that is in mind of one of the reasons that we want to make sure that we address that, to make that connectivity throughout the township. So starting, we have our Safe Streets and Roads, the action plan, and the SEMCOG transportation planning plan. So the SEMCOG, that is basically looks at the Belleville Road corridor. It will look at the intersection at Van Born and Belleville. We'll take a look at Robson Road and Belleville. We will take a look at the Quirk Road and Belleville. So looking at all areas of the corridor to see where we can do traffic slowing measures, additional crosswalks, those types of things to see what is the need. So with the action plan, that kind of puts your plan in place, and then the next step would be implementation. But we can't apply for implementation funds without an action plan. The Safe Streets for All, the SS4A, that encompasses the entire township. And that's going to take traffic crash data from around the township, take a look at that, where we need to, again, look at slowing measures for traffic, additional crosswalks, sidewalks. It's going to address many measures. We have started to create the steering committee, and it's very important because this is a heavily public engagement plan that we make sure that we get residents from all around the township. So we are currently looking at the HOAs and different areas around the township to make sure that we do have representation so anyone and everyone's concerns are addressed and heard. And that is all for my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions I'm able.
Does anybody have any questions? No? It is. The DDA is doing an amazing amount of work, and it's great to go there and coming up with lots of ideas and figuring out how to fund them and developing long-term grant programs.
Yes.
And then going out and figuring out how to fund those long-term grant programs. So thank you very much. Okay, do we have another presentation, or is Ron? Or are you part of the other part? Are you part of the, never mind, I know where you're, okay, I get it now. Not that quick sometimes.
Thank you.
It's the last call for any correspondence, announcements, or presentations. Nope. All right. Next item is public comment. Anybody from the public that wishes to comment today on any issues for the board? Anybody wishing to comment on any issues? Could you step up to the microphone, because they won't hear you anywhere but here.
Hello, my name is Eric Cheeks. I'm new at this. 60 years old, divorced, my father of two, and I'm single. I retired from Chrysler, but I'm from Sumter Township, but I just bought a home 6 months ago on Haggerty Sub, about 6 months ago. The only problem I'm trying to address is trying to bottom line. My house got egged on, I got a letter over there from the police department too. My house got egged like the old-fashioned way on January the 2nd. And so I called the police, and I did get a report, which they threw some eggs, but they also threw some pop cans. Now, the problem I don't have no problem with, like I said, I've been out here all my life. But I do have a problem with that block. You know what I mean? I don't know what's the problem. I get along with my next door neighbors. We get along good. I don't know what happened. So anyway, I got a surveillance camera now, and nobody seen what happened or whatever. Nobody know the camera didn't show. So the only problem I have is I'm just trying to follow the procedure of what to do next. I did talk to the supervisor. He said he really didn't have no proof, so there's really too much you could do. I said, well, if they had cans that they threw, why didn't somebody take the fingerprints from the can and probably, try to dust them off and find it? But I guess it wasn't worth the time. Now, what I did do, as I said, I'm not a violent man and I don't even have a history of violence. But I did say if it happens again, I'm gonna call channel 2, 4, and 7. Only because I put it on blast. I think somebody, something should be done about that. Nobody's house in 2024 should be getting egged up.
We should.
Shouldn't.
Yeah.
That's my only point.
Thank you, Mr. Cheeks.
Can I,
Sir, go ahead.
can I address that? Mr. Cheeks, I'm glad you brought this to our attention, but I would like you to know that this similar incidents has been reported. We had several homes in Andover Farms that got egged and cartons of milk thrown at the house. So I think it's a bunch of kids that's going around doing it. We did capture a couple of videos on some of the door cams, but we was unable to verify because they was wearing hoods. But I just want you to know, I don't think this is an isolated incident, because I know 4 or 5 similar incidents has been reported in my subdivision also, okay?
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Unfinished business, we have none. New business, discussion and consider approval of special land use request for daycare. Can I get a motion and somebody read it?
Chair, I make a motion to approve the special land use as requested by Kimberly Youngblood to change an existing home daycare to a daycare group home used as defined per section 2.102, parent A, parent 60, parent B of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance at 13657 Country Walk Boulevard.
Thank you. Clerk Wright. All right, Director Powers.
Okay, thank you, Board. While I try to load up a graphic, I think this can be explained without much in the way of graphics. We have here tonight Kimberly Youngless, who is the property owner of 13657 Country Walk Boulevard. She has operated what's called a family daycare home at that location, which is a permitted use by right in the property zoning district. That type of daycare home in-house allows up to 6 children by state law, and there's a use category for up to 12 children that requires special land use approval in Van Buren Township. And so the request is to increase from the up to 6 children category to the up to 12 children category. And there's actually an allowance to bump that up to 14 after 29 months of operation under current state policies. You have in your packet a simple site plan showing the location of the lot. It's of course in the Country Walk subdivision, and the Planning Commission reviewed this request on January 10th and held a public hearing for it on that date. The applicant has a roughly 3,400 square foot home according to assessor's records, built in 2004. The home is adequate to serve this use. The Planning Commission looked at a number of general special land use criteria, including whether this would be a socially and economically desirable use of the land, necessary for public convenience. We noted that there are 536 single-family homes in this neighborhood and a lot of children with a daycare need. Whether the house and use would be compatible with the surrounding character of the neighborhood and well-serviced by public utilities and services. The Planning Commission found that all those criteria were met. There are also some specific criteria related to the distance between daycare home or group daycare home and other institutional uses, which include certain correctional facilities and other institutional uses, but also includes a distance from other group daycare homes. This home site is well separated from all of the listed institutional uses in the zoning ordinance. It is a little less than 1,500 feet. It's about 1,200 feet from the next nearest group daycare home, which is the home operated by Danielle Sizemore, who was in front of this board last year. And so those two daycare homes will be a little bit closer together. However, the Planning Commission reviewed traffic patterns, the availability of parking, and found that was not going to be an issue. There's essentially one of those sites is on a cul-de-sac. The other site is on a street parallel to that road that the cul-de-sac enters onto. And so the traffic patterns really shouldn't be conflicting, and there are no major concerns in those regards. The use also will comply with the zoning ordinance requirements for hours of operation. And there's, as I'm kind of alluded to, there's adequate parking capacity. This is a corner lot with 127 roughly feet of frontage on Country Walk Boulevard and 118 feet of frontage on Camden. And there is the availability to park on street on this side of the street on one of those cross streets. So there's plenty of on-street parking capacity in addition to the space available in the driveway. And so the Planning Commission found that this proposed expansion from a family daycare home to a group daycare home would be approvable, and they approved with some conditions the proposed expansion. The conditions, some of which they addressed that night on January 10th, include that the Planning Commission needed to make findings on traffic and parking and other impacts related to the proximity between this use and the other daycare home, that the applicant had to clarify the number of employees on the site plan, which is something we can collect on the updated version of the site plan, that the applicant shall provide any required approvals from the Country Walk 2 Homeowners Association. If the applicant is going to move forward with fencing, that they needed to provide fencing specifications, which they showed a retractable fence for their use, which is not required by state law, but is something that may help with some site security if the applicant wants to move forward with that. If the applicant is going to use the fencing, that they need to extend that to the property corners on that corner lot where the two streets converge. And those were, that summarizes all of the conditions on the approval for this request. And so we had a good review of this. There was a public hearing, no objection from any of the neighbors. And as I said, Ms. Younglis is here tonight. The daycare home is called Busy Bees Home Daycare. And so I'm sure she'd be happy to speak to it if you have questions. And I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
You want to speak to it?
Sure. I mean, just to say that what Dan said is what the Planning Commission did decide that they would do. And because the state has said how desperately they need daycare, we're just real glad that she chose Van Buren Township to have her daycare center. We questioned her a lot. She has it in her basement. She has escape fire windows that go out of the basement and with ladders so that there will be no problem getting children out. Hopefully that never happens, but at least it's available. We also gave her the option to have a fence if she thought that was needed. It's just a nice situation for our residents, and we're glad you're there.
Any other questions? No? Okay, she's probably been grilled by 3 different boards already, so I'll leave it alone.
Thank you for choosing us.
All right, I have a motion currently by Treasurer Budd, and it's been supported by Clerk Wright. Last call for any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? This motion passes. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you,
Actually,
Board.
we could use you very much, so thank you. All right, next item is discussion on and to consider approval of Fishbeck and to provide a wastewater master plan study.
Through the chair.
Thank you, Clerk Wright.
I'd like to make the proposal to consider approval of Fishbeck to provide a wastewater master plan study for Van Buren Township sanitary system in the amount of $198,500 to be paid from the sewer fund 592-537- 971-003, Capital Sewer Fund.
Who said support? That's Kevin Martin. All right, Trustee Martin. Okay, Director Lawrence, could you go on?
Good evening, Board. As most of you guys are aware, we have 4 different sanitary districts within the township. There's been a lot of interest in the northwest corner of the township. Large manufacturers want to come in, but the problem is we have capacity issues in that area. So this wastewater study would help determine which way to send our flows. Part of that scope is task number 1 would be meter flowing. Basically, they're going to take 14 temporary wastewater meters and install them throughout the area. And one of them is going to be in the city of Belleville. They're going to track the flow that is being received there.
Received or eliminated from Belleville.
Being discharged into the city of Belleville. They're going to track that. But I do have Maria here that's an expert in that. I'm going to turn it over to her and let her explain that.
Yeah, and discharged into Belleville? I'm confused.
So Belleville's wastewater, good evening, everyone,
Thank
first,
you.
thank you.
Name for the records.
Maria Setke with Fishback. So Belleville's sewage actually discharges into your sewage system before both of them go into the DUA system. So we will be putting a meter on there so we can subtract their flows from your flows so that it's not included.
That makes
So,
sense.
yep. So the intent is to put, 14 temporary flow meters into your sewer system to collect flows. We'd put them in, we want them in to collect spring, summer, and fall information. So we'd like to put them in April 1st for 7 months. They'd collect data, they'd measure level and velocity every 5 minutes, and then calculate flow. We'd also install some rain gauges. So what we want to know is how much flow is in the system during dry weather conditions, and then how much rainwater gets into your sewer system, depending on the different size rain events. Once we've gotten all that data, we'd calibrate and update your hydraulic model. We've got a hydraulic model of your whole sewer system. It's probably 5 years old, and it's not that detailed. So part of this is we'd detail it, we'd expand it, we'd calibrate it to the meter data, and once we have a good hydraulic model of your system, then we'd sit down with your staff and figure out where we can expand, where we can accept more flow, how much we can accept more flow from manufacturers, and then where can we send it. The bigger issue is how do we get it out of your system into the authorities to treat. You've got 4 different ways you send your flow, so we'd be talking to all 4 authorities to figure out which one can accept the flow and which is the cheapest one that can accept your flow, and then what do we need to do to your infrastructure to get that flow from the manufacturers out to those authorities. So that would be the study. As I said, we'd collect data for 7 months, and then we'd calibrate the model, so we'd hope to have a draft report for you by May of next year, May of 2025. Any questions?
Questions? I actually have a few after you, if you guys don't. So I knew about this, and I'm not surprised by it, and I've sat in meetings on it, but I don't know why I didn't catch this. There are currently flow meters on all of Belleville's waste, and there's flow meters on our waste going out.
There are meters on your flow going out of your system,
Right.
correct. But we don't have it broken interior to your system. There's a map we've included that shows how we're going to break your system into 14 districts.
Okay, so you're gonna take the 14 districts, and you're gonna break those up into the 4 different wastewater treatment plants that we're currently sending it to.
The four will be broken down into 14, correct.
Will we be able to use this data to readjust what we claim our flow rate is? Example, Rouge Valley is at 99%. If our calibration shows only 90%, will they accept our numbers?
I can't speak for them. We would present the data to them,
Okay.
absolutely. Will they accept it? You know, these will be temporary meters. The meters that they have on your system are permanent meters. So in theory, those are more accurate, but I will leave that. But these are temporary meters that for
Okay.
7 months. But yes, we can definitely, if there's major discrepancies, we can definitely present that data to the authorities. Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? I don't know why I didn't think of that when we were in the meetings, but, okay. All right, so I have a motion right now by Clerk Wright, and it has been supported by Trustee Martin. Is there any last questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Pose? Motion passes. Thank
Much.
you. Sorry, should have asked that here, but. Item number 3 is discussion on to consider approval of an addendum number 2 to an agreement with Fishbeck regarding the Denton Road Bridge. Can I get a motion? Trustee Kelly.
Consider approval of addendum number 2 to the agreement between Fishbeck Associates and Van Buren Township for the design engineering for Denton Road Bridge in the amount of $42,240.
Support.
Mr. Boynton? Okay, Director Akers.
Thank you very much. Good evening. During our environmental permitting and investigations for the bridge, it was discovered that there is an endangered species of flower called the water willow on the causeway leading up to the bridge. In order to proceed with our Eagle and MDNR permitting on the project, we will need to have a company under contract to relocate and monitor the endangered plants. Fishbeck has solicited quotes for this work and has prepared an amendment to our agreement to cover the cost of those services. Fishbeck will be working with ASTI Environmental to complete the following scope of work. The first step is to prepare the relocation monitoring plan for water willow impacted by bridge construction. 2, to conduct the relocation of the water willow, and then 3, to monitor the relocated water willow for a period of 3 years, which covers 2025 through 2027. These services will bring us into compliance with state and federal guidelines regarding the endangered species. The cost of this added service is $42,240 and is included in the attached sub-consultant agreement amendment. This will bring the total cost of design engineering for the project to $499,940. These costs will be subject to reimbursement from Wayne County as part of the funding received for this project. As an update, we are still waiting on a contract from the county which addresses this, but we've had recent discussions with the Director of Engineering where he had indicated that they were working on moving this forward. Before we move forward and keep talking about this, I did provide all the board members with a memo which kind of gives a general update as to where we're at with the bridge. I was going to go through it right now if that's okay. Thank you. So this memo kind of outlines the different tasks of the bridge and breaks it down into the plan preparation, environmental permitting, utilities, and then kind of what our next steps are moving forward. So our original goal was to have the plan submitted to Wayne County by March 1st, and that goal is still on track. The township and our engineers had what's called the grade inspection meeting or GI meeting with Wayne County on January 29th, where we reviewed the 85% complete construction plans with Wayne County Engineering. We had a good discussion that puts the plans on track for Fishbeck to submit them to the county on or around March 1st. The county thus far has reviewed the plans quickly and provided timely feedback so we could continue to meet our timelines. After this meeting, we had a discussion with the bridge engineers and county engineering regarding some tree removal and the impact that tree removal and some fencing removals could have on the adjacent property owner. Township staff will be reaching out to that property owner to discuss what is going on and what their impact is going to be in the next coming week. Overall, the plan development is on track and we're able to continue meeting all of the original design goals for the bridge, including raising the height of the bridge, adding a sidewalk, and completing several of the decorative elements we discussed. As we have previously discussed, the bridge will have one pier in the middle of the bridge, which will support 2 spans. In addition to this, regarding the design, the township also engaged and completed a survey over the December and January, showing what material will be used for the retaining wall. The winning option for the survey, which was published on the township's social media page, was the simulated limestone, which has been incorporated into the design. Regarding the environmental permitting, Fishbeck has submitted the necessary environmental permit applications for the project, and with this authorization, we'll finish addressing any of the remaining comments from the state. It's anticipated that we will have the necessary environmental permits secured prior to the summer so the work can begin. For utilities, the township, Fishbeck, and Wayne County have all met with DTE Gas to discuss the relocation of the gas main that's on the bridge. The gas line will need to be relocated along Beckley Road and potentially the I-94 South Service Drive to maintain service to those areas on the west side of the bridge. They are working on a solution and a timeline to complete that work, and we anticipate meeting again at the end of the week on Friday to discuss that further. In order to help us expedite this process, the supervisor and deputy supervisor has been in contact with DTE Governmental Affairs and had gotten their assurances that they would help us move forward as quickly as we can in order to continue to meet our timelines. As soon as I have more information, specific information from DTE, I'll make sure it's shared. One other item that I wanted to highlight regarding utilities is we've talked with DTE Electric. There's going to be streetlights on the bridge. So we've talked with them. They've planned to put the conduit in, and so there will be the decorative streetlights that are similar to what you see in downtown Belleville on the causeway and on the bridge adjacent to where the sidewalk is. So moving forward, after the plans are submitted to Wayne County, they will move forward in their procurement process by bidding the project out, securing a contractor, and constructing the bridge. We will continue to work with them to make sure that we get this project started as fast as we're able to. This project has come a long way in the past year and has been a collaborative effort from everyone involved to keep it moving along, and we will continue to push forward to ensure the project is completed as quickly as feasible. So that concludes my update. Thank you for your patience during the process, and please let me know if there are any additional questions. I look forward to discussing them.
When are they going to move the water willow?
They're in the process of formulating the plan. I don't have a specific date yet, but I'll find out.
Okay. And the new home for the water willow?
It's going to be relocated somewhere in the vicinity,
Of the
but
bridge?
outside of the project boundaries, yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, are these multiple plants that, the water lily? This is a lot of them?
There's a couple different patches that were outlined on the plans. I believe they're on the south side of the causeway. So there's a handful of, I think, 3 or 4 different areas where they're growing.
Didn't we clean that at one time?
I would have cleaned it really good. I would have been asking for bouquets of them last year if I knew.
Who found the water? Second swim, we had that clean.
He did. It only stands about this tall, and it's looks like a weed with a pretty purple fuzzy flower, like a cattail flower almost, a purple.
I know what you're talking about now.
Please don't pull. We really do have to find them new homes, so. Otherwise, we'll be looking for new ones, so. They're not hard to find. They're not easy to find. Okay. All right, does there any other questions? Okay, all right. I have a motion on this one by trustee Kelly and supported by trustee Boynton. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Director. All right, next one is discussion on to consider approval of on-grade contracting to provide 16-inch water main repair and valve installation.
Through the chair,
Trustee Martin?
I'd like to make the motion to approve on-grade contracting to provide a 16-inch water main repair and valve installation for Van Buren Township's water system on Edison Road in the amount of $46,300 to be paid from Water Fund 592-536-971-001, capital outlay system improvement.
What's that?
Oh, give it to him.
Yeah. I'll let the, Director Lawrence, could you give us an update on this?
Sure. August of 2023, I've noticed a small leak on the Edison Road Bridge. It has increased since then. It's running pretty heavy, and I got 4 quotes to make this repair, and the low quote was on grade in the amount of $46,300. With this, with this repair, I'd also like to install a 16-inch valve. By installing this 16-inch valve, it minimizes the area that we would have to disrupt to make the repair. And with the bridge being in such bad condition, I can also isolate that, and with the valve, provide a redundant loop to where I can feed the water around it and can isolate that bridge and still have adequate pressure. This is a budgeted item, but before we were going to try to do what is called a bell tap. Basically, you could put a sleeve over the water main while it's under pressure. But looking at this, studying it further, I think it's best that we fix the leak and install a 16-inch valve, and that way it would make the system better, and it would provide a redundant loop. When we shut it off, we won't put out as many people out of water to make a repair.
Questions?
Makes sense to me.
You said, put as many people out to make a repair. Could you define that better?
Well, if we,
Who's going out while you make the repair? And if you don't make the repair and it breaks, who's going to lose water?
basically,
I
you're
think
gonna,
that provides City Belleville, doesn't it?
no, it's gonna be from Hannon Road
All right,
down to Haggerty, so you lose all those homes in between there would be out of water. Plus, it runs behind some kind of business, they would be out of water as well.
okay.
So,
And it's on the old Edison Road Bridge, which I understand was a real bridge for cars, and they have Model T pictures of Model Ts driving across it to give you an idea of how old this bridge is. And we're probably gonna have to deal with shoring that bridge up someday. Which brings me to the next question. There's a gas line on that bridge.
it is.
Has anybody talked to DTE about doing work on that gas line or maybe helping us with that bridge?
No, I haven't.
Okay, let's put that on our list. Okay. Anybody else have a question? Okay. I got a motion by trustee Martin, and it's been supported by Boynton. Trustee Boynton. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Reports, we have none. We're now down to public comment for non-agenda items amongst the public. Is anybody that wishes to speak today on anything they want to speak on? Is there anybody online that wishes to speak on anything that they want to speak on?
No, Supervisor.
Is there any board member that wants to make any comments whatsoever?
I
Clerk?
guess I need to make one. So we will not be having a board meeting another one prior to the election. We are having an election February 27th. It's the presidential primary. Ballots are going out as we speak, absentee ballots. 9 days prior to the election date, we will start early voting, and early voting will run consecutively until the day of the elections. February 17th, thank you. Starting February 17th, you will be able to vote early, which is different from absentee voting. Absentee voting is of course, you get your ballot in the mail, you fill it out, you send it back, or you bring it back. Early voting, you get the opportunity to come in. We'll have 2 precincts set up in the township hall where you can actually vote and put your ballot through the tabulator. But once you put your ballot through the tabulator, that's a final process. You have no option of, there's no coming back and changing your ballot. It would be tabulated as it would be on election day. That's the early voting process. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, can I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Boynton. Support Frazier. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.